Hi, so welcome to the third episode of AEC Tech Talks. My name is Gaurav Agrawal. I am the owner of Agrawal Structural Consultant. With me is Anisha Agrawal. So, Anisha, would you like to give your introduction?
Thanks, Gaurav. Hi, my name is Anisha Agrawal. I'm a structural engineer and I'm providing structural services to clients all over the globe. Can you please introduce now to our guest, Gaurav?
Sure, yes. So, today we have our guest, Mr. Priyanshu. He is the founder and CEO of Clean Water Sustainable Water Technologies Private Limited. He focuses on the water and cleaning of water bodies. So, today the topic of our discussion is rejuvenation of water bodies, problems and solutions. So, Priyanshu, would you like to give a short brief about yourself and then get this call started?
Sure, I'd like to. Hello everyone. My name is Priyanshu Kumath. Like Gaurav mentioned, I'm the founder CEO of Clean Water, and we rejuvenate water bodies. And to be more specific, we focus on water quality improvement, and then most of the problems at water bodies then get solved uh, as a result. So we offer sustainable and scalable nature-based products like floating wetlands, aerators, and microbial cultures that help improve the water quality, restore the ecology and biodiversity, and do beautification simultaneously. And so that we solve problems at the water bodies. So, yeah, that's what we do. I actually am a civil engineer too. I hold a BTech in civil engineering from IIT Bombay. Worked across civil engineering, real estate startups like housing.com, etc. before moving back to my hometown Indore and starting Clean Water back in 2016-17. We actually used to build sewage treatment plants. We started with that, delivered over 30 such treatment plants before moving on to rejuvenation of water bodies and products. So earlier we used to give services. Now we are completely focused on products for rejuvenation of water bodies. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we do and about my journey. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
nice to hear that. So, Priyanshu, you can share your screen and get the presentation rolling.
Great. So Gaurav, Anisha, I'm sure that even both of you, at some point in your life, you both must have also dreamt of an ideal house, right? Which is near a water body. Remember that childhood painting, right?
Yes, yes,
With
yes,
birds in the air, fishes in the water, cool wind caressing your face, right? But
yes.
living near water bodies today is so far from that dream. There's solid waste everywhere. Fishes can't survive in the water, so birds no longer flock to these water bodies, right? But what if I told you that we have cracked the code to rejuvenating these water bodies so that all of us can one day realize our dream of living near water bodies? But first and foremost, we have to understand what the basic problem is, because the problem at water bodies actually is multidimensional. How I kind of classify this is I categorize these into two parts. One is water scarcity, the other is water pollution. Although both of them are connected, but we kind of primarily focus on water pollution. So, for example, at water bodies, we know that in the Indian context, particularly, the water bodies receive a lot of sewage and effluents, right? Untreated wastewater, which
Mhm.
first and foremost renders the water unfit for use. Which what that means is that you can't really pump that water in a tanker or supply it anywhere, right? So the problem of water pollution does affect the problem of water scarcity as well. And then because of the polluted water, the fishes and the aquatic life start dying. There's mosquito breeding, which causes waterborne diseases and deaths. The polluted water starts percolating in the ground, causing groundwater table to get polluted, and which ruins the water for future generations as well. And one thing that often misses the eye is that with the effluents, a lot of sludge comes in as well and gets accumulated at the bottom of water bodies. And so you see at water bodies, oxygen transfer only happens at the surface. And oxygen is unable to reach till the bottom of lakes, etc. So in absence of oxygen, this sludge rots, decomposes, and gives out methane emissions, which does affect the global greenhouse gas emissions as well. So there's a climate angle to water bodies as well, which is often missed. And all of this kind of is leading to economic losses as well. And we really need to turn this around fast. So India is already in a water stress zone. Our cities are running out of groundwater. Niti Aayog says 21 cities will have no groundwater by 2031. Water is at the heart of our problem with Pakistan and China as well. So we really need to turn it around fast. And there are a few things being done, which you can see on the screen, but let me kind of discuss this in more detail. The first thing that the government is doing right now is setting up of sewage treatment plants or wastewater treatment plants so that uh, the water bodies remain clean, right? They are tapping nalas that used to go into the drains or the lakes, rerouting this wastewater towards a treatment plant, and only then the treated water can actually enter into water bodies. Now, there are multiple problems with this. First and foremost, there's often no land available around water bodies, right? Particularly in the urban context, because we have encroached them from all sides. Um, Secondly, the pipelines that lead up to the treatment plant are often faulty, have leakages, and the water can't reach the treatment plant in the first place. Even if you're able to do that, treatment plants are a high capex and opex solution. You need a lot of capital to set up these treatment plants and a lot of maintenance cost to be actually running them. And given in the Indian scenario, often the organizations running these treatment plants cut corners and don't really treat the water up to the required standard and discharge the polluted water back into water bodies. That's another problem. Another thing is most of these wastewater treatment plants are being set up downstream of the city. So the water from all of the sources would flow downstream, apart, like away from the city, where it's treated. Now, if you want to reuse this water, you can't pump this back again, right? And reuse this within the entire city. You'll have to lay down fresh pipelines and ensure safety measures, etc., to reuse this water. That's another problem. So therefore, an ideal solution would be one where which requires low cost to set it up. If the solution could float on water and provide the same benefits, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Um, that's one thought process of ours. Other things being done right now is dosing of chemical solutions. So we see that when we really need a quick fix, let's say if there's a kumbh or any snan happening or a bath happening at any city on any ghats, we really need the water to be clean and very quickly. Often chemicals are dosed, which cause more harm than benefit because they have their own side effects. Although they might clean the water, but they'll kill the entire aquatic life. So I won't really call it a solution either. And there are other solutions like setting up of PVC-based floating islands, which I won't call a solution because they don't really serve the purpose in the first place. They don't treat the water entirely, and neither are they able to stand the test of time. So they kind of drown within 3 to 6 months. And so that's exactly where our organization comes in, to provide solutions to water pollution at water bodies using these three products. Which are all nature-based products, sustainable and scalable. Our first product is called floating islands or floating wetlands. So imagine this as floating platforms floating on water with plants planted on top. And the roots of these plants go down into the water. And these roots and the friendly bacteria that come and attach to these long plant roots, and we actually add biomedia underneath the islands as well. So that there is maximum biofilm formation or accumulation of friendly bacteria. And together they pull up nutrients from the water, they pull up heavy metals, remove all kinds of pollutants. So that's our first product. And floating islands also help in rejuvenation and restoration of ecology and biodiversity. So what we've seen is fishes want shade. So they come and hide underneath the floating wetlands. But the birds are smarter. They want to hunt for fish, so they come and sit on top of the islands. We've seen ducks laying eggs on top of the islands, non-poisonous water snakes sitting on the islands. So it does rejuvenate the ecology and biodiversity as well while doing beautification. Our second product is aerators, which help to improve the oxygen levels in water so that aquatic life can survive. And also helps reduce the BOD and COD, the biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand, further purifying the water. And a third product is microbacterial solutions or microbial cultures. They come in the form of a powder or a liquid, can be readily dosed on the water by simply throwing or sprinkling this powder on water, or diluting it in a drum and dosing it. And this is a really quick fix. It shows results within 15 days and is a low cost solution as well. So using these products, we actually solve most of the problems, like the water quality issues, the ecology is restored, the methane emissions these are reduced. Beautification is also done as a side benefit. So this, in essence, is what we do. And so I'll also tell you about our thought process of how we kind of ended up doing this. So we actually used to build wastewater treatment plants before this, the sewage treatment plants and the effluent treatment plants. We delivered over, that's what our organization started with effectively, by giving services, consulting services for the same. We delivered over 30 sewage treatment plants to government and private clients like Shapoorji Pallonji, Department of Atomic Energy, various builders, etc. But what we realized was that out of these 30, not even 5 clients are actually running their treatment plants. They just set it up. Yeah, I know that's really discouraging, but they had set it up because they wanted a NOC from the Pollution Control Board. That's the only reason they set it up. Because unless they got this NOC, they wouldn't have maybe able to hand over the colony to the residents or start their hotel or hospital. So they set up the STP but don't run it. So that's still causing the problem to escalate, and the water bodies are still getting polluted. Another thing we noticed was, maybe you both as structural consultants might not completely agree or like this, but we think services in India particularly are not very scalable, or maybe product-based business models are far more scalable. So having delivered over 30 treatment plants as consultants, and particularly to clients like builders and governments, we realized payment was a real issue. So the Indian clients are really poor paymasters. They would hold your last 10, 20, 30% of your payment, will not either give it to you or will give it to you after a year, or maybe take a complimentary operation maintenance services for a year, plus the time and effort it takes for you to follow up and all. But and also with services, a consultant could ideally be handling 10, 20, 50, 100 projects at best, right? Simultaneously. While if you make products like maybe phones or any product, you could supply it to millions of places simultaneously, right? And that makes it much more scalable. And what we realized was that given the huge quantum of water bodies in India, we really need a product-based approach to rejuvenate them in the next 5 to 10 years. Another data that you'd really like to know is that for the first time in India's history, the water body census was conducted last year in 2023, and the government has identified 24 lakh stagnant water bodies, just the lakes, ponds, tanks, and reservoirs, plus all of the flowing water bodies are different. The streams, drains, rivers are different. Just the stagnant ones are 24 lakh. So if we want to rejuvenate even 10% of them, 2.4 lakhs in the next 5 to 10 years, a services-based or a consulting-based approach might not be able to serve the intended purpose. But with products, we can be catering to tens of thousands of water bodies every year. So that's the vision we're going ahead with, that anybody looking to rejuvenate a water body anywhere, the basic things they can do by themselves, right? You might need to make a boundary wall around the lake. You might need to desilt it. You might need to make the bunds better. You might want to plant some trees, pick up the garbage, have a walkway, benches, lights, etc. Right? And these basic civil and earthworks, anybody can do, right? Any contractor, any NGO. But they would still need to improve the water quality. And that's exactly where we come in. So these NGOs or contractors can work with the government, do the licensing, do the slow sales process, do these activities, and take our products and rejuvenate the water bodies this way. So that's how we're kind of proceeding ahead, by sticking to products and tying up with NGOs, not-for-profits, corporates, government suppliers, etc., to have maximum impact. Yeah. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is what we do, and we have actually created more than 17 different types of floating islands till date, and worked over 18 water bodies across the country, including lakes and rivers both. So the photo you see on the top right of your screen is Nalanda Sarovar that we rejuvenated back in 2019. Got the award of Water Hero from Jal Shakti, central government, for this. Uh, the image on the top left of your screen is Piplihana Lake in Indore. So we rejuvenated this about 1.5 years back, and have been able to maintain a healthy water quality at this lake for over a year and a half with all of the parameters within the prescribed norms. And this invasive species, the duckweed, the azolla that used to cover the surface, has completely vanished from the lake. So, and besides this, we worked at Sabarmati riverfront, couple of lakes in Delhi, Bangalore, Tamil Nadu. So this is what we do. And I can also run you through the products that we have, like floating islands, etc. And yeah, this is what a typical cross section of a floating island looks like. It's a floating platform with plants on top, roots and going down into the water. We add biomedia underneath the islands. It's the same biomedia that's made of recycled plastic and used in MBBR-based sewage treatment plants. The purpose of this is to provide maximum surface area for the friendly bacteria to come and attach to, because it's the bacteria that does 80 to 90% of the treatment, while plants just contribute to 10 to 20% of the treatment. And then together the plants and the bacteria uptake nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus. Plants also uptake heavy metals, and thereby cleaning the water of pollutants. So that's about the floating islands. On the microbial cultures front, it comes in the form of a powder or liquid, has multiple benefits, right? So at water bodies, regarding the water, if you think, anything except H2O is a pollutant in the water, maybe sparing one or two organic things. So we need to remove odor from the water. We need to remove color. There should be no nutrients, no heavy metals, no inorganic pollutants, right? So this caters to multiple things. It removes the color and odor. It prevents growth of invasive species of water hyacinth algae, right? Because one of the problems that most governments in India face is the constant problem of water hyacinth. They keep removing it, the water hyacinth keeps coming back. But wouldn't it be great if the water hyacinth stopped forming altogether, so that the government won't have to keep spending resources on that? So that's possible with our microbial culture. So it helps reduce sludge accumulated at the bottom and the nutrients, particularly the ammonical nitrogen, and very easy to dose because it can be simply sprinkled on the water or diluted in a drum and dosed over 12 hours. And what we're essentially doing with this is fixing the nitrogen cycle, converting the ammonical nitrogen into nitrites, and then finally into nitrates and into free nitrogen. So we're fixing the nitrogen cycle and removing nutrients, because if you remove the nutrients, there's no food left for water hyacinth, algae, etc. And then they starve and don't really multiply on the water body. So that's another way of looking at it, that we're starving out the algae and the water hyacinth by removing the nutrients. And I'll also quickly show you the pond that we rejuvenated back in 2019. This is called Nalanda Sarovar inside Police Training College campus. And this is the condition we found it in. Had a plastic pond liner before we kind of got to the lake. And because of this, the connection with nature had been cut. So anything that would fall in the pond would just rot and decompose there. The water would turn green and brown. And nutrients and other pollutants had no way of going out because of the plastic pond liner. And so what we did at this lake was, first and foremost, we installed our floating islands there because the plants take some time to grow. We installed a biofilter there, which is like a pump pulling up water from the lake, putting it under the biofilter where it goes through biofiltration, physical filtration, and falls back into the water body as a waterfall, ensuring further aeration and oxygenation. and we desilted, removed the legacy sludge from bottom. We did some basic civil beautification works, tree plantations, etc. around the water body. And this is what it transformed into. Completely clean water using 3 different plants: vetiver grass, cypress or umbrella palm, and canna. And you can see the transformation in water quality, right from completely green and brown to absolutely clear. And the ecology got a boost as well. Some photos of the underwater roots at the water body. Yeah, so this is in a nutshell what we do. I'll also show you some photos of this Piplihana lake that we restored. This is how it looks post restoration. Yeah, I'll take a pause here. Invite some questions from both of you.
Sure. I'd like to ask one question. This just from a personal experience. Like when I started my own firm, I did like a opening ceremony at a local beach in Mumbai here, in Dadar. So at the beach, I saw a storm pipe coming in, and all the sludge it was pumped into the Arabian Sea. And so when I backtracked it and saw it's coming from the Methi River. I think what's happening in Mumbai is like they are putting all the sludge in the river, which is directly going into the ocean. So what is the solution for that? I mean, is there any of your product which BMC can use, or maybe something other thing?
Right. So definitely the BMC can use all of the 3 products that I mentioned about. However, the problem in Mumbai is a little tricky. The biggest problem in Mumbai is there is no space.
Yes.
Not for treatment plants, not for anything, right?
Yes.
Not for a green buffer zone around the water body as well. So according to the law of the land, we have to leave a 10-meter or a 30-meter buffer zone on both sides of the river.
Okay.
But practically implementing that law, enforcing that in a city like Mumbai is just not possible.
Possible.
You'll have to demolish so many buildings, displace lakhs of people from their homes, right? And which is really not practical in the Indian context, because the politicians will come, it's their
Yes.
vote bank, will stop and get a stay on this, right?
Yes.
So we have to work under those constraints of having no space. But our solutions are designed for that. So, for example, we have to dose our microbial cultures, right? So they're a powder or a liquid. You can still dose them on the Methi River or the drain directly to ensure the water quality improves, the quantity of sludge reduces as well. Now, Mumbai faces another problem with the heavy rainfall, and particularly a lot of parts, low-lying parts in the city get submerged, water gets filled there. So then you have to really pump the water out into the sea. And coastal cities have been doing this for ever now, that they've been discharging their wastewater directly into the sea, because the sea or the ocean won't get polluted, right? So this has been going on constantly. And in emergency situations with waterlogging, the sludge still does get pumped out of the city, but the wastewater can still be diverted into treatment plants or treated within the river itself using our solution. So that's a possibility. Definitely can be done.
So, like, I think all of our viewers and everybody are aware about something called Ganga Action Plan. So, what was that? And because I recently visited Haridwar, Rishikesh, and I saw this river was very, very clean. I mean, the water was green, like not like with the sludge green, like the clean green. So,
Okay.
what was that? And were any of your measures, similar measures used there, if you know about?
Uh, I'm not completely sure if that green is a natural texture of that river, or is it because of nutrients and algae forming because of that. Because around Haridwar, there are a lot of industries because of the abundance of water there.
Yes.
And a lot of these industries still discharge their wastewater into the river. And
Yes.
these pollutants then cause algal blooms. And that could be one of the reasons why the river was green. So yeah, solutions can readily remove this green color from the water within a month, maybe within 15 days as well. So we have solutions for that. Plus, combining the floating wetlands would help it further. So technically speaking, there's a lot of ammonical nitrogen that comes into water bodies. So this NH4N needs to be oxidized into nitrites first, and then nitrates, and then free nitrogen.
Okay.
So in order to do that, we need all of the three products:
Yeah.
aerators, cultures, and islands. So we do have solutions for that.
I have few questions, Priyanshu. So, um, just want to understand when you visit a water body and you want to understand like the level of pollution there and the current situation, then apart from what is visible, like say you are able to see deterioration on the side, on the banks, and then like some floating garbage or other things, what other tests do you perform and how do you know like this is above the safe level? If you can share some on that.
Right. So I think the best and the only way to do this is take a water sample and take multiple water samples actually. So if imagine a lake which has multiple sources of wastewater coming in. So first and foremost, how much wastewater is coming in from each source. Second data point you'd require is what is the quality of wastewater coming in. Does it have nutrient load that is coming in from fertilizers, pesticides from agriculture fields? Or is it sewage contamination coming in from residential households, which has a lot of BOD or COD, which has a lot of BOD? Or is it chemical contaminants coming in from industries, which has a lot of COD? So ideally, we'd like to take a detailed water test report with BOD, COD, nutrients, TSS, pH, things like this, and multiple reports of each inlet and at multiple points in the lake. Plus, we'd like to know how big the lake or the water body is. Does it have 5 crore liters of water or 20 crore liters of water? And depending on how much water is coming in, what's the quality, we then come up with a solution with a kind of a balance kind of report that per day, this many milligrams or grams or kgs of BOD or nutrients are coming in. In order to remove that, we need, let's say, X kilograms of our microbial cultures every day. Plus, the dissolved oxygen levels in the water are very low. Therefore, we need to aerate the entire water body to keep the dissolved oxygen levels above 5, which is prescribed for a healthy aquatic life. And how many wetlands would we also require based on how much nitrate needs to be uptaken as well. So based on all of these data, we generally give a very technical, detailed solution. When the private clients just won't spend even 10,000 bucks in getting a water test report, 10, 20,000 kind of a budget, and just still they want you to share a quotation. Hey, I want to restore the water body, give me a report. Okay, but you have to give me this data first, right? How much water is there? What's the area coverage in monsoons? What's the area coverage in summers when the water body shrinks? What's the quantity of water? So data is actually a real problem in the Indian scenario, and that is something that needs to be fixed as well. But the ideal way is to kind of take a water sample first, take all of the data, and then prescribe a best technical solution. That's how we go about it.
Yeah, I got an idea. So I also assume that you do some kind of survey, like to understand that in the rainy season, how much extra silt might come in the water from nearby areas and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Not silt, but other pollutants, yes. Uh, I think we don't have the luxury in India to be worrying about silt just yet. What I mean by that is, in India, we're still struggling to provide clean drinking water to everyone. Not everybody in India has a piped connection to their homes, right? You must have heard of the Prime Minister's Har Ghar Jal Yojana, which
Yep.
is to provide a piped connection to everybody. So that's priority number one. Priority number two for the government right now is setting up of treatment plants. Priority number three is then rejuvenation of water bodies. And after we have solved all of these problems, can we actually start thinking about storm water or how much silt is getting accumulated? So let's say if a lake was 18 feet deep, and silt is accumulating and it's getting more shallower by the year. Is it filling up by 6 inches every year or 2 feet every year? That's very honestly priority number 5, 6, 7. We have to solve a lot of problems first before we kind of start worrying about stormwater treatment and silt. That's the reality of India.
Yeah, I was just worried about like since you're dealing with water bodies, then maybe if you look into that, you might prevent some kind of flooding in the rains. But I think that is too far-fetched for now.
Yeah,
In-
yeah, it's about priorities, and because we have a very limited budget, right? So very honestly, before COVID, the budget from the government was kind of non-existent. After COVID, with schemes like Amrit, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, etc., budget has started coming in from the central government to the state governments, the city governments, and therefore a lot of water bodies are now getting rejuvenated because of this. And that trend has just started in the last 2 to 3 years, which is a good sign for our industry. But it just shows that the sector is still in its nascent stage. We might not have even restored 1% of the urban water bodies till date. So very honestly, we have a long way to go. Right now, even the government does not have data of how many water bodies are there in their geography, what's the water quality, how many sources of wastewater there are coming into. So we really have a long journey ahead of us in terms of rejuvenating water bodies. But this is a start. At least the water body census last year, we have identified how many water bodies are there. Now, what the government ideally should be doing is breaking down this problem into smaller pieces. Now, out of these, let's say 24 lakh water bodies, 1 lakh are in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, then 1,000 are in the district of Indore. So then you break down the problems and let's say give the Indore district administration the responsibility of just these 1,000 water bodies. Then the Indore administration can further break this down into wards and zones. And let's say as geographies, as a district, what we can try to ensure is that when the river passes from our district and passes into the next district, we have to ensure it's clean. We have to ensure that the river that comes into our district is clean and the river when it crosses our district is clean. And when every district can do that, the bigger problem will automatically get solved. And in order to do that, you will have to restore lakes, you will have to restore the step wells, the bowdies, the wells, the different drains, etc. But breaking down the problem into smaller pieces should be the way to go. So yeah, still early days for the same.
Yeah, I hear you, and I hope we go that route sooner than later. My next question is like this floating islands. I really like the concept. So once you install them, how long does it typically take to reduce the level of pollutants to safer limit? Something on that line.
Right. So floating wetlands actually start showing effect from day one because we have biomedia underneath the wetlands as well. So the friendly bacteria would come and attach to the biomedia on day one, and they'll start removing pollutants from the day one itself. But in terms of plants, they reach their maximum height within 3 to 6 months, and therefore their optimum performance is observed 2 months, 3 months down the line. And therefore it's a relatively slower solution, but a sustainable one at that, because the floating islands are really low operation maintenance. Like once you've set it up, any gardener or any unskilled person can operate and maintain it. All they need to do is just give it a trim when the plants go up to 8 feet in height. In 6 months, give them a trim, bring them down to 1.5, 2 feet again, and they're good for the next 3 to 6 months again till they grow back to 7 to 8 feet in height. And that's the first thing in O&M. And the only other thing you have to do is ensure they are floating over the deeper part of the lake and don't get grounded. What I mean by that is lakes get filled during the monsoons and then they start shrinking and the water levels go down as the summers approach. All you have to do is ensure that the islands don't go and sit on land anywhere as the water levels go down, and they remain floating over the deeper part of the lake. So you need to might be loosen or tighten the ropes a bit so that to ensure that they're anchored in the right position. So very low O&M that way. And yeah, so that's the thing about floating island. So it's a high, like the initial setup cost might be higher, but the running cost is really, really less. The microbial cultures are completely opposite. It's almost a zero capex solution, but you'll have to keep using the bacteria and keep dosing it every week, every month, till there is wastewater coming into the pond. So might not be a great cost upfront, but given the fact that you'll have to keep dosing it every year and you can't stop, that's why in the long, so it has a OPEX, like a constant cost of maintenance, but that's low and very bearable in terms of the overall cost of restoration. And aerators are similar to islands. So you have a one-time setup cost and then a running cost of electricity for maintenance and servicing of the motors whenever required. So these are the solutions that we offer. And how we've kind of thought about this is we need to remove every pollutant. Floating wetlands can only remove a certain type of pollutants. For example, they're good at removing heavy metals, zinc, lead, cadmium, etc. But they're not so good at removing ammoniacal nitrogen. They're good at removing nitrates, but not ammoniacal nitrogen. So then you have to dose microbial cultures to transform the ammoniacal nitrogen into nitrates, and then the floating wetlands and the plants can uptake them. So that's how how things are structured in terms of pollution.
So it will be a mix of one or two products, like depending on the quality of water.
Mix of two or any three products. So you can have microbial cultures and islands without the aerators, or you could have all three, or you could have aerators and islands or aerators and cultures. So depending on the type of pollutants, you can customize the solution as well. Yeah. Plus the number of islands or the number of aerators can also vary, whether there are 10 islands per acre or 5 islands per acre, that can also vary.
Yeah, understood. And then why did you say that you have to cut the plant to get maximum efficiency out of the floating island?
Because the plants start turning brown after that. They begin to die. So when we plant them, they're generally 1.5 feet in height. They go up to 7-8 feet in height. And if you don't cut them, they'll start turning brown. And it's a regular part of the maintenance of these plants. Even if you were growing them on land, they would have followed a similar path. And that's why you need to keep removing it. So think of it like this. So whatever nutrients or pollutants were there, they got transformed into the body mass of the plant. And when you're cutting them, trimming them and removing them from the lake, you're effectively taking out the nutrients and these pollutants out of the water body and the ecosystem. Because there are invasive species like water hyacinth, algae, which also remove these nutrients. But the problem is they die and then they go and settle at the bottom of the lake. And in order to decompose their dead bodies, you'd further require oxygen. And those nutrients remained in the water body. They didn't ever go out, right? That's why invasive species like water hyacinth, water lettuce, algae, duckweed, azolla are a problem. And by transforming these nutrients into plants and taking them out of the ecosystem, that's a better approach in pollution removal.
Understood. Yeah, thank you. And then one last question, that your solutions are great, but then in general, what are the other solutions that are being incorporated since like a long time, or they are being incorporated with by other firms or the government in India?
Got it. So government first and foremost relies on sewage treatment plant and agree that treatment plants should be set up. Now the problem with treatment plants is that they're often designed based on BOD removal. That BOD in raw sewage was 300. We have to bring it down to below 30 or below 10 or below 3. And the treatment plants are designed accordingly. The treatment plants often don't take nutrient removal into consideration. And that's the problem. So at Pitlihana Lake in Indore, it has a well-functioning STP. The water gets treated and only the treated water is getting discharged into the lake. Yet the lake was facing problems of algae, duckweed, etc. because the nutrients weren't removed. So first and foremost, the government is setting up treatment plants to counter this. sometimes, so I remember a couple of years back when there was Kumbh happening in Ujjain near Indore, and there was a lot of pollution coming in from Indore into the Shipra river, finally leading into Ujjain. The government needed a quick fix, so they dosed copper sulfate into the water. Now the water got cleaned, but the entire aquatic life died. Right. So by the time the water reached Ujjain, it looked clear, but the chemicals in it would have caused some skin irritation and would have definitely have killed the aquatic life. So there are often such quick fixes adopted by the government as well. Plus, there are all kinds of microbial cultures in the market now. Some call it bioenzymes, some give it another kinds of labels, some call it bacterial solutions, some call it microbial cultures, some make it out of cow urine and call it Vedic or organic and things like that. So there are multiple such powders or liquids or cultures available. So that's another thing being adopted. Then there are different kind of aerators as well. So there are nanobubble aerators as well, and there are coarse bubble aerators. So nanobubble aerators are generally better because the oxygen transfer to the water is more. The bigger bubbles would go to the surface and burst and might not transfer the entire oxygen they had within them to the water, while the nanobubbles transfer oxygen more in a better way. So these are these solutions kind of being currently employed. Although a few people try a few other solutions as well, some people find it acceptable to cover the entire lake with water hyacinth because it's cleaning the water, and then they'll keep removing hyacinth. So let the hyacinth clean the water and we'll keep removing hyacinth. But that only removes a certain pollutants and does no effect on the rest of the pollutants. So the thing right now is the sector is maturing and there are a lot of non-technical solutions going around in the market as well. So one needs to be wary of that, but yeah, at least solutions have started coming in and getting deployed. So that's a good sign for the sector to mature too.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm just thinking that wouldn't it be better if the pollutants are treated at the source? Like if they already have STP, then they can maybe use the powdered nutrients that you have and then deploy it there so that at the source they're removed. And then when it comes to the water body, like a reservoir, pond, then if there are some heavy metals or other pollutants that can be only removed through floating islands or aerators, then that solution can be provided there. So that way is like all the private industries and owners will also be liable for treating the water to a certain quality before it comes to the reservoir.
Yes, you're absolutely right in suggesting that pollution should be treated at source, and chemical pollution without exception should be done. And there are decentralized STPs being set up, STPs and ETPs being set up everywhere. So right now, the law of India states that if you have a plot which is bigger than half an acre, you need to set up your own treatment plant within your own plot, within your own campus, and treat the water and reuse the water for gardening, flushing, etc. Now, the law has been there for over 10 years, but like you know, with most of the laws in the Indian context, they don't get enforced. So industries are still kind of running their treatment plants in a better way as compared to residential societies, because they have more at stake. Let's say the pollution control board comes in, they find that they're not running their treatment plant, they might shut off the industry altogether. So the industrialist would then think, why should I risk a loss of a few crores? I'll still spend a few lakhs running the treatment plant. So he would still run it. But when it comes to residential societies, let me give you the example of Silicon City colony in Indore. It is right next to a drain. And it has about 10 lakh liters of water, wastewater generated every day in the campus. Now, that society is more or less a middle class kind of a demographic kind of society where people don't pay enough maintenance to run the lifts in their buildings. Do you think they'll give money to run their STPs? And when it might cost them a few thousand per family per month, right?
Mm.
People won't give 500 rupees per month for maintenance, right? Would they spend a few $1,000 per month? Definitely not.
Yeah, that is true.
So that's the problem. So it was on the builder or the developer to build the treatment plant. He did that because otherwise he couldn't have handed over the colony. But nobody took that into account that the residents would not be able to maintain it or run it given the running cost of the treatment plant. So that's why they have a STP, but they don't run it.
Mm.
But as theoretically as a concept, definitely the pollution should be treated at the source. The organic or the sewage load could still be permitted to enter the water bodies in special cases, but chemical pollution cannot be allowed to enter the water body at any cost and at no exceptions,
Mm.
because organic pollutants automatically get cleaned with plants, with islands, with the natural bacteria in the water, the natural cleaning capacity of rivers and lakes. But chemicals can't be treated that way. And chemicals are of so many different types. We all know that the number of elements in the periodic tables and the permutation combination and the amount of compounds that it has, right? And
Mm.
if you're hoping for one single solution that can remove all the chemical solutions without affecting the microbiology and the ecology and the aquatic life, that does not exist. So
Yeah.
therefore, chemicals need to be stopped at all costs. But on a theoretical point of view, definitely pollution should be controlled at the source. And whatever still overflows because of mismanagement, storm events, or things like that, that could still be treated at the municipal level. Then, yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so just one question, I think probably the last question of the day. We talked about a lot about the Indian context. Just thinking on technical terms, how different are we right now compared to what's happening about the river cleaning, pond cleaning abroad in US, UK? Just the technology and technical wise.
Technically, we are not very different. The technologies and products used in Europe and US are pretty similar to what we use here. For example, most of the treatment plants, the sewage and the effluent treatment plants, are based on ASP, activated sludge process. And that's the same across European, US, and India. However, a few new technologies are also coming in based on membranes, based on like treating water through electricity. But those are more expensive and therefore often not adopted in India. But in terms of technology, we're pretty similar. I think where the difference is on the enforcement bit. Laws get enforced outside, whereas they don't get enforced here.
Yeah.
Technology-wise, it's the same. People in US also use biocultures, use aerators, use wetlands, etc. So on the technology bit, we're more or less there, although they have a few better technologies like membrane and electrical-based treatment too. Yeah.
Okay, so just for a young viewers watching, I mean, you were a civil engineer and took this path. If somebody wants to get into this directly, what education should he follow?
All right.
Technical.
There is no set path of education, right? Because
Okay.
very honestly, I've been working in the environment field, the water treatment space, while I only hold a BTech in civil engineering. I don't have a master's in the environment or a PhD in any relevant topic.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, in terms of education, however, having a master's in environment or a PhD in a more narrow field to maybe treat textile water or things like this is the education path, more or less. There are other allied fields as well, like microbiology. Then we're looking to treat wastewater through plants. So botany also comes in. But more or less civil engineering plus specialization in any such fields. It could be nanomaterials, it could be biochemistry. These could be the relevant education fields before entering into this. However, having said this, let me specify that education is of lesser importance here as compared to the business skills, because most of the people like us who come from technical backgrounds, might not have the patience or the skills required to deal with the government officials, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a completely different ball game altogether. And in this sector, particularly in the environment sector, whether you work in air, water, solid waste, energy, you can't mostly be doing anything without involving the government, right? Because water bodies have been known by the government. If you want to do anything about air or solid waste, you have to involve with the government.
Yep.
So it's more about, do you have that aptitude to deal with the government officials and other clients on a daily basis? I think that's more important than education. And also, one should be really clear about um, what he's willing to do or not. For example, I have a kind of a thing at my end that I won't bribe anyone. But that's my stand, because I know that day I start bribing, I would stop caring about the solution and just focus on the money, right? Cleaning water bodies would go out of the window, and it's about how much money I can make it with this.
Yeah.
Uh, and then there's no level you won't stoop to, right? So that's just my personal thing. So you should be absolutely clear of the dynamics that you're putting your hands into. Technical solutions are there. You can still develop them, refine them, get them better. But it's where the major gap is right now is about taking these solutions to the market. And that's where one should be more focusing on.
So, Anisha, do you have any more questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Priyanshu, would you like to close off with anything you have left?
Yeah, I would like to give out a special message for the younger folks who would be listening to this. Uh, because I think the younger generation is the one who's gonna bear the brunt of the climate change. We've started seeing isolated events across the world with increasing magnitude of storms, floods in Pakistan, drought in China at the same time, the situation we're seeing in Bangalore this year with water scarcity. So it's the younger generation that's going to bear the brunt of the climate change and all of the environment problems. And therefore, the younger generation is the one who will have to step up, take charge and solve the problem. Because very honestly, the last generation is completely corrupt and can't really have a lot of expectations from them to solve the problem. So it really is on the younger generation to get educated, talk about such issues, raise awareness, because only then would the pressure come on the politicians and our bureaucrats to act on it. Because right now, since nobody votes on river cleaning or lake cleaning, and it's on nobody's agenda that if the river didn't get cleaned, I won't vote for this person. So that conversation and consciousness needs to be developed, and then it would come into the broader conversation and pressure on the politicians, and then would finally the action start to come in. So I do implore the younger generation to kind of step forth and take charge here.
No, definitely. That's very true. I mean, what the younger generation is studying, and that's what they are observing. I mean, hope so they get more into the administrative services, the technology services, and bring about the change. So, yeah, thank you, Priyanshu, for the amazing talk today. I think we got to learn a lot about the river and the pond rejuvenation, and I think our viewers also have learned a lot. So, thank you for joining in, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, I had a great time too. It was a pleasure talking to both of you. Hope this message reaches out to maximum number of people. And thank you for having me over.
Thank
Sure,
you.
yeah, we'll have you again for another episode sometime in future for sure.
I would like that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
You too. Thanks. Bye bye.